I'm trying to find where I belong. I asked the Lord what I do wrong. He said you better choose what side you on. What side you on? What side you on, man? What side you on?
Welcome to End Result. I am Pastor Lynn Rollins. I'm here today with my husband, Pastor Kevin, and our wonderful person that we're going to interview today is Les Franklin of the Shaka Franklin Foundation. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting us to your beautiful home.
Thank you.
I want to go right into the conversation. I know you've lost two of your precious sons to suicide. And I want to ask you, how do we know our child may be suffering and may be hearing the voices of suicide speak to them? How do we help them?
One of the most obvious ways to know that something's going on with your child, and I had to learn this and I learned it the hard way, is giving away your personal possessions and giving away things that normally a child wouldn't give away. As an example, Shaka was in high school at Thomas Jefferson. He was a junior there, and he gave his coat away, he gave his watch away. When a child gives you his watch, he's a high school student, you know something's going on. But giving away personal possessions is one of the most obvious ways. And then there are a lot of other ways, and we have warning signs that we're able to share and give to people. We have brochures and other information that we're happy to give out, but that's one of the most obvious ways. Now, Jaman, he gave away even bigger things. I had given him a Porsche, a 928 Porsche, which I spent a lot of money on, of course. And there are a lot of things that are going on with him when I look back on it, I know it's comes real clear that something was wrong. Jaman got into drugs, but he gave away that car, and they hid the car because I still have the title. And that car now, I know the young man that he gave it to, and I love the kid that he gave it to. Since I don't know what he did, but he painted the car, sold it to a guy in Wyoming, and so that car's somewhere in Wyoming. But
that's giving away things is a first highlight that something is not right.
Yeah.
So how would we address that?
Well, I mean, that's like a siren going off, and you got to just pay attention. You got to pay attention because there's a lot of cutting yourself. You know, kids cut themselves on their wrists. They cut themselves under their arm and armpit, which is really hurtful. You know, doing bodily harm to yourself. Okay, bodily harm. Yeah, I remember Shaka. He was upset and he punched a hole in the bathroom wall. You know, and we got to just sit down and talk to our children and ask them why or what is going on. Why are you doing these things? Or why do you feel that way? Or why are you so sullen? You know, why are you so quiet? If they start acting different than they normally act, most parents can tell when their children are acting in a different way. So we just need to pay attention to everything because kids do try to hide what they're feeling. My son, Jaman, when we left going overseas, he hid out. I never saw him alive after we left.
So that's a withdrawal.
Yeah, withdrew. Yeah, he didn't want me to see. He didn't want me. He probably, in his mind, I'm just thinking, didn't want to let me know that he had planned to kill himself. Because by then he had already planned, and he just didn't want to see me because I would have hugged him like I always do, and we would have talked about what he's going to do while I'm here. And I have a lot of regrets. You know, I remember Shaka going into school with his hands down on each side of him, all dejected, and into a side door. And I dropped him off on a Friday. We used to always go down to M&D's on Saturday morning, or, you know, and have breakfast or have lunch mostly. Both of us, me and his brother. And when his brother went to college, then it was Shaka and I. But you know, that day he went in there and he was so dejected, and I wished I had stopped him and said, "Come on back. We're not going to go to school today, and I'm not going to work, and we're just going to hang out." I wish that, but you know, you can't go back and fix things. Things happen, and unfortunately, you just cannot fix it. But you know, Shaka used to come in and just lay down on the floor in the bedroom, and he'd come in and he just hugged me. And Shaka was a sweetheart. I mean, he was just a big teddy bear, and anybody at his school would say the same thing.
Okay, so what must be our strategy or success to reach and love and win against the loss of our children?
Well, let me tell you something that I tell every child I talk to in school, and I tell parents the same thing. I ask the children in school, because every time a person is doing something, going to do something, most times, I'd say 9 times out of 10, they would tell another child or someone, keep a secret, don't tell anyone, this is what I'm feeling or this is what I plan to do. And the kids will keep the secret. For whatever reason, they'll keep the secret, and then their friend kills himself. So when I go in, I tell them, look, would you rather have a dead friend or a live enemy? You know, or a live ex-friend, a live ex, because they're not going to be your enemy. They'll just be maybe your ex-friend, because they may be angry with you for telling. And a lot of times they are angry because you tell that, but they really don't want to die. I've never met a kid yet that wanted to die that we've been able to save. They always say they just were feeling so dark in this dark tunnel, they just didn't feel there was any way out. And with Jaman, I know that once he got into drugs, and he started stealing my wife's jewelry. He stole my jewelry.
Another sign. Another sign. Yeah, that's another sign.
Yeah.
Wow. Can we prevent suicide?
Well, you know, it's difficult because people are free. I mean, parents go to work. Children you think they're at school, they may be at home, or they may head like they walk out, they're going to school and they don't. So yes, we can prevent, I think, the vast majority of suicide, but you know, the youngest suicide I've known to happen in the state of Colorado is a 5-year-old. You know, where they knew it was truly suicide. Girls tend to cut themselves and take poison, take pills. So yes, watch the pill cabinet. Lock up your weapons, because boys tend to shoot themselves or hang themselves. Boys, when they do it,
so it's a gender difference.
Yes, there's definitely a gender difference. Boys are much more violent with what they do, and there's less chance to save them than it is with girls. Girls take poison and you got a chance. They cut themselves and you have a chance, because the blood shows up. But boys don't do the same kinds of things when they take their lives, for the most part. Now, it's not 100%, but for the most part, that's how it happens.
You know, I'm a mother, and I have a son, and I have my daughter, and one thing that I remember when my son was a little boy, you know, people, and I said it too, oh, mama's a little man, you know, putting that title of manhood on a baby, on a child, on a young adult. Looking back on that, you know, is that an error to allow them to be a child, allow them to be a young person? And we don't immediately do that with daughters. You know, oh, mama's little woman. No, we don't do that. But we put that. And boy, don't you cry. What you crying? Put them tears back up. Stop crying. Is that damaging to males?
I think we should let people express themselves. If a child is crying, you cry, and then you just find out, why are you crying?
Yes.
You know, you sit down and talk to them. Children are different today. They're bombarded by so much.
That's so true.
That's so different than when, you know, I know when I grew up, it was a totally different time. And grandma was always there, and the nuclear family, you had everybody living in the house. You know, when I came home, my grandmother was at home. You know, we didn't have the family, rest of my uncle, my aunt, and my mother, or dad, or stepfather, in this is my case. They were all out working, doing what they're doing, but grandma was home. I knew where she was, and there was food there. Now kids are coming home to empty houses. My kids came home to empty houses for years because I was divorced for a number of years. And then when Shaka was here, my aunt left with her sister and my cousin and moved into another place. So there was nobody here but Shaka when he came home. His brother was off in school.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, his brother was gone. So Shaka came home to a large empty house in a cold environment. and he had plenty of time to think. He had been injured playing football, so he was not football practice or whatever was on. He just wasn't doing that anymore. And so, yeah, we need to talk to our children, but the biggest thing we need to do is listen. I tell parents, listen, because children are speaking even when they don't say a word.
True. So, listening also is preventative.
Yes, very much so.
Love. You know, I've heard of many parents sometimes over activity their children. Like they go from soccer practice to piano, and then the next day they have football practice and all that. Is that successful?
Well, I think every child is different, and then some kids they just want to be active and want to do different things, and I've seen the same thing. And then you have other children that they're not interested in any of that. But I do think that we need to try to get kids, maybe do more things with them, and then they're not buried into a computer or buried into their phone. I mean, society today, people are looking at their cell phones driving down the street. They're looking at their cell. You go into a lobby, you go into a waiting room, you go to the doctor's office, and if there's 5 people there, there's all 5 of them, or maybe one might be looking at their cell phone, but generally all 5 are looking at it. So because of the technology that kids have, and kids have their own cell phones now, they go to school with it. So the society is so different. So I think it's important for parents to create, if they can, the activities. But the other challenge is, a mother will tell you in a minute, look, I'm single, I'm raising my kids by myself. I don't have time to do all this other stuff. And she said, plus I'm tired. I come home, I done been 12 hours today. And so there has to be another way for them. That's why the community has to be there for our children. We have to, I used to be able to go to, someplace and play baseball on my own. I played baseball, I played basketball, played football, played hockey. And I got on a bus and went out to the Broadmoor in Colorado Springs by myself at 8 years old. And I did that until I was 15. And at 15, I bought a car.
So you learned to
survive on your own. Yeah, yes. But today your kid can't do the same things. Who's going to let a kid, 8-year-old kid, walk out even a block at 6 o'clock in the morning so they can catch a bus to go somewhere to participate in a sport? So the challenges are much greater, and again, the community has to step up. We had buses that took us to the boys club, and we would gather at different corners. That bus took us to the boys. We played basketball. We did things at the boys club. That's not available anymore.
Why is it not available?
Because people say it was costs. Yeah, but costs. Well, cost my foot. We ought to have the buses. We ought to, the community, our community ought to do it. We need to buy the buses, do whatever we got to do and make those available to the community. Our community doesn't reach out and come together and say, look, we need to pool our little dollars and pennies together and raise whatever money we need to do to satisfy the needs of our community.
Is it just the community, though? What about our elected officials?
Well, you can't count on that. We've had elected officials now for eons, and what's happened? Here's where we are. What's changed? I say, you're religious. I'm somewhat religious. I believe in God, but the heck with the politicians. Let them catch up with us, and then let's start changing some of them. We just someone gets there and they stay forever. Once they get elected, they stay forever. I ran for Congress against Diane DeGette. I haven't seen Diane DeGette but 2 times anywhere on the media anywhere in the last. It's been 30 years. Because I ran before Shaka died. She's been there 30 years. What has she done for our community?
Yeah.
What has she done for the black community? Tell me. You tell me. If you can tell me she's done something special for the black community, I'll go down to 5 Points and I'll start eating on the sidewalk.
All right. Another thing that concerned me, like you, I love to expose.
Yeah.
Because I'm about truth.
Yeah.
My husband and I were invited to, I'm not going to say the name of the meeting. I'm going to look in the camera now. But my husband and I were invited to a very elaborate, fun meeting where the tickets were like, $75 a person, and we were invited. And all of our local Denver politicians were there. And I watched, and it's, as like you said, I'm a pastor, and I'm a watcher. And I watched, and they all took pictures with each other. If I said the names, you would know each one of these people elected in office. Our governor was there, Governor Polis was there, and others. And I watched, and before the main African-American woman shipped in here to Denver to speak to not only the politicians, your elected officials, I turned and looked and their whole table was empty. The only person that stayed was Mr. Hickenlooper. Everyone else was gone. I'm sure you had appointments. I'm sure you had meetings.
But let me tell you.
I've never
Let me
seen
tell you about
nothing like
Hickenlooper. When he first was mayor, my wife and I went and met with him for the foundation.
Yes.
Because through a black politician years ago, who since has passed away, she was on Denver Housing Board, along with Reverend Peters, and we went to meet with him. And the words that he said to us, and I'll never forget it, quote unquote, "If I help you, I'll have to help the rest of them." And he didn't tell me who them were, but he said, "I'll have to help the rest of them." I walked out of the meeting, and that was the last time I met him. My wife went back and tried to have a conversation with him again. Same results. She ended up getting nothing. So I don't have any faith. If you can't touch and feel something that they've done for the community, that's a structure, because that's what they do. They help those big companies that come in here. And those companies that build these buildings and do things downtown and all of the things that they do, they help them. But it's all about the Benjamins. And if you think it's not about the Benjamins, you're losing your mind. You need to go get some help, because it's all about the Benjamins. These guys are not responding to people that just want you to respond to. Don't tell me about politicians. I know about politicians. I've been watching them for years. And I know a lot of them, and I've worked with and for politicians. So, I'm not happy with what they do. Now, I'll tell Mayor Webb, he helped us with, I'm trying to think, gosh, my mind is so bad now at this age.
Take your time.
Webb did help us with the land that we got. We've had land right there at 51st and Broadway. You can touch the highway, it's 20 feet from the highway, to build a facility there, and everything we do for children is free. And Webb did help us with that. But wonderful. Beyond Webb, I can't speak to the current people.
That's why you said communities must gather.
Communities must gather, and individuals that have the resources have to consolidate. We need to have corporations, and white males, what they do is they'll take 4 or 5 of them, and they'll pool their money together, and they'll go down, take their credit and go down to the bank, and they'll get a loan. We put our money in these banks and these facilities, and we don't expect to get, and we don't get anything from them. And I think that's foolish. If we can't get it from them, we ought to create our own banks. We can get, like, banks are buying and selling each other all the time. I was on the Wells Fargo Bank for 20 years. It started as the United Bank of Denver. Then it became Norwest, and now it's Wells Fargo. And they picked Wells Fargo because the name Norwest was the real primary bank. That was the strongest part. And then what they do to you, you sit on a board and they say, well, we don't need these. We were a regular board. I saw whatever the bank president made, or chairman made, I saw what he made. Then they changed it to a community board.
So it's all changed.
That's right, changed. And then when I was on the regular board, we have a committee meeting. I got $700 for each committee meeting.
Well,
and each board meeting was so that's $1,400 a quarter.
Wow.
Now, and so these boards mean something. We need to understand that. As a community, we need to understand how the system works, because it's working for some people. It's just not working for us. Those great big boards, national boards, these companies that are coming in our community advertising, you go to board meetings there, those meetings might be $10,000 a meeting. You know, there are people that sit on enough national boards, they don't even have to work.
But nothing for our children.
No, well, no, not what ought to be coming into our communities. There ought to be a tax, a child tax, for every single corporation in this country. Whatever your overall revenue is, X amount of dollars have to go into communities for children. Okay. And that's something I have never heard anybody talk about, but it needs to happen.
That is your passion.
Yeah, absolutely. My passion is seeing these kids have the resources that they need to be able to function and because the society is so different today. Parents are working, and most parents are working hard. And you know, like I just heard numbers like 60% of the people in this country are making less than $40,000 a year. You add that up. Who can live off of $40,000 a year? I don't know how they're doing it. 60% of this country living on less than $40,000 a year. And then you got 1% or 2% of the country that has 98% of the resources, of the cash resources.
There's
and
no
then
balance.
You got these big conglomerates that they build and everything, and then they lease and rent, and we run right into the building and rent from them. And all we're doing is feeding the tiger that's ready to eat us.
So,
it don't make no sense to me.
And so unfortunately, we can't heal the world. But like you said, we are concerned about children and children's lives flourishing because they are our future. They really are our future. If a family has, like yourself, losses to suicide, what do you recommend for the healing process?
Oh, you know, I talk to parents all the time. I just talked to a gentleman from Russia last Saturday at a game where they were trying to raise money for our foundation. And again, this is a white organization trying to raise money for basically what is a black organization. And we don't ever have black organizations come and say, we want to help you raise money. But bottom line, he had a friend that his friend's son committed suicide and took his life. And I offered to him, I gave my card, my business card, and I said, please tell your friend that I'm available because I know exactly what he's going to go through. And I'm happy to have to revisit the pain that I have to help another parent because I know what they're going through. So I just offer up, you know, come and talk because reaction typically is different for men and women. I remember talking to a father in Greeley and and to his family, and they're at their home. And the father just said he made a very bad decision, and just like that in that tone, which was a bad decision, because suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Most people have whatever problem they have.
Looking at my notes.
Whatever problem they have is temporary. You can get past that. You can solve it. And we have to show children that there are ways to get past whatever they're dealing with. You can you can overcome that. And so pain is the most difficult part of it. You never overcome it, but it becomes dull. It gets a little duller and duller and duller as you go through the years. And you're able to deal with it and talk about it. But my pain is there.
Will you share your contact information?
Of course.
Please
yes,
look in the camera and do that.
I can be reached, our foundation number is 303-337-2515.
Is there a website?
Yes, it's info@shaka.org. info@shaka.org. I think that's how you reach us. But if that doesn't work, then give us a call and we'll give you the information that will help you get to us. But, you know, we like to reach out to people. We like to do the things that can help the community. Unfortunately, most of our contacts come from the majority community, and that's not a bad thing. It's a great thing that they care enough to reach out, because the majority of communities recognize that there are serious problems out there, and that we help. Actually, we deal with more Anglo kids and Latino kids than we do black kids, because the black community doesn't come out. They don't do the things I think they need to do to be heard and get the expression. Just like what you're doing now, this media, this forum, this is important. We don't have our own television stations. You know, what you're doing ought to be helped and funded. I don't know what you're doing for cash and what you're doing for getting the funding to help keep this project going on, but I expect to make a donation.
Thank you.
You know, I definitely expect that. And when I've done things down on 5 Points with the radio podcast, you know, I try to make a donation. You know, and so
Well,
you know,
we appreciate
we want to be not just a part of the community. We want to be in the community. And if this is the only way we're going to be able to get into the community through medium, then so be it. That's where we want to be.
We want to bring the end result. What is the end result? Let me say this before you answer. Suicide is the 11th leading cause of death in the United States, taking the lives of around 47,000 Americans a year on my research. Problems are temporary. You looked at my notes, I think. Problems are temporary. Suicide is permanent.
Absolutely, it's permanent, and then we need to turn that around. It doesn't have to be. And the way you turn it around is you got to be there and be with your children every chance you get, and you got to understand and listen. But listen, because like I said, children are speaking even when they're not saying a word. Body language, understand what the body language is telling you, because it talks. And when I look back on all the things both of my sons were doing and involved in, and how they were acting, they were trying to tell me they were hurting, and they were crying out for help, and I just didn't know how to read the signs. And so the organizations out here, and there are a lot of organizations in this community, from every community's got organizations that you can go to, and they've got literature. You get the literature, learn the signs, learn to read the signs. And there's a list of, I got the cards with the list of those signs. I haven't memorized them, but I have the information. And I've been doing this so long that when I see children and I see things going on, even if someone else's child, I'll ask them, I say, what's going on with you? And most times I am dealing with someone else's child, you know, and then I'll make sure that you can ask me not to tell your parents, but I'm going to tell them. I might tell you, I'm not going to tell them, but I'm going to eventually get to the parent, make sure the parent is aware.
Yes,
we
wonderful.
have to talk to the parent.
Yes. I thank
and the
you
parent
for
are the final solution.
I'm sorry?
The parent, they are the final solution.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. Thank you for inviting us into your beautiful home. Thank you for your time. Tell Marianne we love her and your pups. He smiles when he talks about his
I love
pups.
those girls.
This has been an awesome opportunity. Thank you so much, Mr. Franklin.
Yeah.
When you were last speaking, I'm going to say real quickly, there was a whole shift in the atmosphere. That means the presence of God be with you and your family, in your home. May you continue to run on and share hope, because you're still here to do that. That's my encouragement to you and your family.
Thank you.
The end result.
I'm trying to find where I belong. I asked the Lord what I do wrong. He said you better choose what side you on. What side you on? What side you on, man? What side you on? What side you on, man? What side you on? What side you on? Hey, see, I know what side I'm on, man. What side you on? What side you on? What about you? What side you on, man?